A warm welcome to part 2 of what will probably be a 3-part series covering me building a ZX Spectrum from all new bits and pieces. Starting off with a plain motherboard and hopefully have a fully built and working Spectrum by the end of it. Or quite possibly a very expensive paperweight. Now, if you've not seen part 1, you've not missed a great deal. I just started off with a board and fitted a few resistors, but you may want to watch that anyway. If you did watch part 1, then hopefully you're looking forward to this, part 2, and apologies for the delay in bringing it to you. But that's purely from a point of economics. This is not a cheap build to do. I reckon it's going to cost me somewhere in the region of £200 for all the bits and pieces by the time I've finished. But that said, I need to say a few quick thank yous to John and James for both sending me bits to help me with this build at some significant cost to them. So that is more than appreciated. Thank you both for doing that. And I'll take you through what they sent me very shortly. On top of that, though, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I also want to say a quick thank you to Brandon Leitner, who is my first channel member. And for that, is committed to support me financially, which is amazing. If you'd like to join my channel as a member, there's a link in the description. And for that, you'll get early access to my videos. And I'll also give you sneak preview updates as and when I can. Final thank you, as always, goes to my channel sponsor, PCBWay, who help make videos like this possible too. A big shout out and thank you to PCBWay for sponsoring this video on my channel. PCBWay, they make PCBs from as little as $5 with super fast shipping. Here is one that I got off their project pages. It's a recreation of the issue 3B ZX Spectrum board. So if you fancy getting yourself one of these, get yourself on the PCBWay projects pages. But not only do they do PCBs, they also do 3D printing. This is a little case they made up for me for my little Electrolytic diagnostic cart. And as well as 3D printing, they do CNC machining. So whatever your project needs, do check out PCBWay. If you need some inspiration, check out their project pages. It's crammed full of them. But thank you again to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. Link in the description. So let's start with the goodies that James has sent me to help me with this build. And he's very nicely sent a card. And I'll just read you what it says. To Simon, hope these come in useful. Thanks for the great YouTube videos. Keep them coming. All the best, James. Thank you for that, James. Let's have a look at what he's very kindly sent me. So this, if you don't know what it is a little tool to help you bend the legs on the components. So where you've got stuff like these diodes here, rather than doing what I was doing in my last Spectrum build video, I was using a peg to just bend the legs, which worked to a greater or lesser extent. But I think James took sympathy on me and decided to very kindly 3D print this himself and mark it up. Retro Computing Reboot. How awesome is that? So Peg's retired and we'll be using this kindly supplied by James from now on. But not only that, he also sent me this. And once again, Retro Computing Reboot branded. How fabulous is that? Perhaps there's a market for these things. If you don't know what this is a chip leg straightener. You've got the two sizes there, the small and the large one. And for example, this is how it works. So if you've got a chip with a load of bent legs, as long as they're not completely all over the shop, you can just slot this onto there and give it a little nip and they were straight to begin with, weren't they? But they would give you nice straight legs like what's on here. So once again, James, that's awesome. Thank you for those. Next is this substantial box that John has sent me. John, I know you'll be watching this. Thank you, mate. It's more than I could ever hoped for. You're an absolute star. I'll get the box emptied and I'll get the box out of the way, and I'll show you what John sent me, which I'm sure you'll be like me and be absolutely amazed. We'll start off with what's on top. So inside this little bit of bubble wrap packaging, he sent me this little recreation of the ZX81 board, which is pretty much like what I'm doing now with the Spectrum, but obviously ZX81 style, and the little modulator board as well for it. So that is undoubtedly going to be a future build. Thank you, John. I'll move those out of the way. Tub number one. So tub number one is an absolute crap ton of stuff for the Spectrum. This build that I'm doing now, he sent me a load of diodes there and the big 1 watt resistor. We've got, I think there's a speaker in there. We've got the power connectors, the power connector. We've got the audio, the ear and mic jack. We've got the keyboard connectors. Absolutely fabulous. We've got a set of axial capacitors there. He's even sent me, how awesome is this? They recreated ULA, the Nebula one, which if you're looking for one, check out Electrolytic for that. Switchable power connector, which is fantastic too. And inside this little box, if I can remember how to open it, he's also sent me a ROM, a CPU, and a load of logic chips as well. Some of these logic chips are quite hard to come by. So that is absolutely brilliant. Thanks, John. I'll move those out of the way and I'll move on to tub number two. Let's get rid of those out of the way. So tub number two, these aren't Spectrum related, but this will be of interest for anybody who's subscribing, because this will be part of a future build as well, I am certain. So I'll tell you about this little PCB he sent me. This is in relation to the BBC, and what it does is it's called a BeebSID, and I'd never heard of this until John mentioned it. He says, oh, I'll send you some stuff. It might be something of interest to you. And yes, it is. And he sent me 3 PCBs. He probably knows me well and knows there's a good chance I might mess one up. So I've got 3 of the PCBs and a lot of bits and pieces in relation to it. Obviously, we've got some logic chips there, and I'm not quite sure what that one is, but I will work it out as I go along, I'm sure. Lots of other little bits to help with the build for that. But this is a build which will enable the BBC to play Commodore 64 audio files, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So that's brilliant. That is quite exciting to look forward to for the future. I've also been buying a few bits and pieces myself, of course. Got a selection of transistors. I can't remember if I've got them all yet, but I'm hoping I'm there or thereabouts. I've got some diodes. I've got these crystals as well, which I found really hard to come by. But if anyone's after these, check them out. Retro Computer Shack on eBay. Great seller. I've got some of the little, I think they're called metal film capacitors as well. Needed a load of those, so those arrived. I think I'm missing a couple of values yet, so not quite there. And then I've got a bunch of resistors as well, because I needed some of the 1% tolerance resistors as specified for the Spectrum. So I think I've got most resistors. I've got some more coming from China, but that'll hopefully be with me very soon. So I'm quite happy. I've got pretty much everything. Still a couple of bits, but I think I've got all the stuff that's going to be difficult to come by sorted. So here we are. This is the build so far. If you've not seen part one, or you can't be bothered watching it, which is more than fair enough. Still looking quite bare. Got a number of resistors fitted and then ran out and needed a ton of stuff. So this is early days yet, but I'm hoping in this video I'll get most of those bits and pieces that I've shown you fitted. I'm working on the smaller stuff to begin with because I don't want the bigger stuff getting in the way of me working. I'm more likely to be making mistakes then, so I'm trying to get the smaller stuff fitted before moving on to the more exciting, bigger stuff. So that's where we are with that. Yeah, I did another video in between mentioning the issues that I've been having soldering. So hopefully, as we go along, I'll be taking some of those comments on board. I think I had something like 100 comments. The amount of support I've had is truly astounding. If you saw that video and sent me a comment, thank you very much. I will be doing the best to absorb the advice that I've been sent and hopefully put it into practice. I think what I'm going to do then to begin with, I'm going to start with these resistors, get these fitted first. Now, I can't remember off the top of my head how many of these resistors of each value I need to fit. I'm just fairly certain I've got more than what I need, so I won't be fitting every single one that you see here, just as many as what I need of each value. Obviously, when you're buying these, you can't just buy, well, you probably can just buy them individually, but it works out cheaper to get a few together. And no doubt these will come in handy in the future. Who knows? I might even do another one at a later date. So let's crack on and get some of these resistors fitted. So I'm going to go with these first. According to the build of materials, I just require one of these, and that's in R58, which is down there. And the build of materials requires, it says, 2% tolerance. All the other ones that are fitted, I think, are 5. So this requires a tighter tolerance. And just because I've never used this supplier before, and just because it's easier than reading the codes, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the multimeter and just move that back a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just gonna test the resistance. So if it's 1% and it's 1,000 ohms, 1 kilo ohm, then it shouldn't be more than 10 ohms out, should it? So let's see what that says. And there we are, 0.995 of a kilo ohm. So that is indeed a 1% tolerance, 1,000 ohm resistor. So let's get one off and get it fitted. Let's move that back in. Right, 58, wasn't it? Right, got a bit of a wobble on. Right, how's that? Pretty good. Right, let's get one off. And thank James for this. We're not using the peg. I'm going to use the sizing tool to help do that. And I reckon, looking at that and the legs either side, I reckon it's this sized one. So it fits in there, nice and snug. Hope you can see that. And we'll bend the legs down at that. So hopefully, if you've got one of these as well, you get nice nicely spaced out components when they're all in a line. And I'll try keep the orientation the same as to what I've been doing previously, just so it looks extra neat. And so we'll do it that way around. Oopsie daisy. And just spread the legs at the back just to keep it in place whilst we solder it. Right, so that, let's tighten up the thing. That should be ready for soldering. A little bit of flux. And I know some of the comments says you use too much flux, Simon. And I can't help myself. I'll probably always be using too much. It's just how I am. It just makes it harder to clean off. That's all. It's too much flux isn't a bad thing. It just gives you more to clean up at the end. So let's get some solder on this joint, and we can take this one off as then done. Just put this solder on. I'm trying to use less solder because I don't want it to look as blobby as what I did last time. How's that? I don't think that's too bad, is it? Don't think that's too bad. Right, that's one down, many more to go. I'll speed up the rest of them, but you can watch me fit the rest of these resistors. When I move on to another component, I'll just mention it briefly, and we'll do it like that. So that is the majority of the resistors done. I'm just waiting for some more of these to arrive from China. That's the 1% done, and then there's the big chunker up there, which I'll do at some point, perhaps in this video. I think what I'm going to do next is I've got these out. These are the multi-layer something capacitors or something else like that. Little capacitors, little axial capacitors, which aren't directional. So in other words, you can fit these. They're not orientation sensitive. They don't have a polarity. I thought I'd got more values than this. I've obviously ordered incorrectly. I'm just going to fit the ones that I have and then back order the rest of them. So exactly the same as the resistors. No orientation, just in case I get them soldered in, which I'll do speeded up. So that is most of the resistors and these little metal film capacitors. I think that's what they're called. I've not done the electrolytic capacitors yet. I'll do them a bit later, just because they're large and I don't want anything getting in the way. I've given the board a little bit of a clean and just made sure, just gone around, made sure I've not got any shorts. Just a bit of fluff there from the cotton buds, but I think we're still looking good so far. The resistors I've got missing, like I said, they're coming winging their way from China, and I've got a few capacitor values that I'm missing there. You can see C38, C37, and a few more dotted around. I've not got values for those, so I'm going to get those ordered. But whilst I wait for those, I think the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this. I'm going to put this little rectifier diode in, which goes in D15. One to note is with the diode, if I just get the glare out of the camera, apologies for that. There is markings on the silk screen and there's marking on the diode as well. This is important that you do fit it the right way around. The other stuff we've fitted doesn't matter, but this does. So let's get the legs bent on this and get it in. And it's the same again with these diodes, the 1N4148, I want to say. I think there's 12 of these. So once again, just watch out for the orientation. I've got a bit bored fitting small stuff because it feels like I'm not achieving very much, and the rest of my small stuff, well, most of it anyway, I'm still waiting to come. So I'm going to do some big stuff. I'm going to do this big resistor R34, the 1 watt resistor, which will go in there, and I'm going to do the keyboard connectors as well, just because I want to, really. What you need to be aware of, though, and something that's prevalent to these connectors, yours may be different, but the connection on what am I trying to think of? On the membrane that connects into there, the connectors from the membrane, they are directionally sensitive. I have seen connectors where it makes contact on both sides, but I don't think this is the one. And for this one, the orientation needs to be with the shiny bit to the bottom, and on the shorter one, which I've got here, it's the other way around. And it doesn't really matter which one you put it in. Obviously it does in terms of the outline on the board, but if yours is different, you can orientate it accordingly, because whichever set of holes you use, they're all connected up anyway. So that'll be how mine's going, with the shiny connectors at the top on the small one and on that one at the bottom. And I'm also going to fit the barrel jacks for the ear, which should go in there. It says I have to just bring the legs in a little bit. Right, well, that was a proper pain. The legs were just slightly too wide. With just taking a little bit off, I've managed to get them to go in, but it's still a very tight fit. But we got there in the end. So if yours are like mine, just be aware you might need to just trim a little bit off the legs just to get through the holes. But there you go, there's no fear of that falling out. Right, so I'll put the DC jack in there. That goes in nice and easy. I've lost my blue tack, so I will hold it in place with some tape. Once we get soldered into place, because otherwise when I flip it out it will just fall off. I think we're about there. Don't want the tape to get into the way of where I'm soldering. Right, let's see if we can get those soldered on. Job done. I don't think that's too bad, even for me. Let's have a good look at that. Just make sure everything's still lined up, which it is. Yeah, quite pleased with that. That's all right, that. And I've not melted anything. Excellent. Right, let's see if we can get this big chubby resistor in. I won't be able to use my sizing tool, my leg bending tool from James, as it's just going to be too big for it. But let's just have a guess. See how that works out for us. Made it a little bit small. But I think that's going to be okay. Right, let's see if we can get these keyboard connectors on. Like I say, a long one with the teeth at the bottom. Get some tape on it wherever I put it. And let's check that for straightness. Yeah, that's pretty good, is that? I'm happy with that. Solder the rest on. Pretty good. And then the smaller one. Next thing I think I'm going to do is I'm going to fit the two oscillators. I've got the 14 megahertz and the 4.43, so on and so forth. Now, the 14 megahertz is the X1, and what I need to be careful of is the case itself will short if it goes down and touches those pins, the connectors on the board. So what I was thinking is just put something, maybe a bit too fat, but just put something between them, just so that it lifts it up off the board a bit. It's probably a bit too big, that. Let's just make it a bit smaller. So solder it there, it's going to make contact and join the two pins behind it, which we don't want. It looks a bit Heath Robinson, because it is. But as long as I can solder that on and it keeps off the board, we are good. No doubt if you have a go at this, you'll find a better way of doing it, but this is the first idea that sprung to mind. Right, that's soldered on. Before I trim those off, let's see this side, what state that's in. Right, so we should have an air gap, which we do. So there's no way for that case now to short between the two connections. So I'm feeling happy enough, I'll trim those off. If you've done this before yourself, do write in the comments whatever you find is a better way of doing this. Save somebody copying my idiocy. Right, second one, which is the X2. Now what I want to do there, I mean, we've got all that space because this is a much more compact version than what's come with previous Spectrums, and once again, if it went in there, it's just gonna short and do anything. So what I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna do it so that it's like that, and then just bend the legs through 90 degrees. So let's do that. So something like that is what I'm going to go with. So let's tape that down. I think a big one would probably look neater, but it's hard enough to find this one. Spin that around. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I think next thing then, I'm actually going to fit the speaker, which I don't think it's going to get in the way of anything. I don't think it's going to make life too difficult to fit the capacitor next to it. I think we'll be all right there. Don't think I'm going to risk melting it. So let's stick that on. Perfect. Starting to look like a Spectrum, isn't it? Right, that's another 24 hours for me, a few seconds for you. I've decided what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fit the majority of the transistors. Now, I've still got, it's not going to surprise you, this is it. I've still got at least a couple missing. I think it's the BC 149 or something off the top of my head, and the ZX 650. I'll order those shortly, but I'm going to do those capacitors, and I'm going to fit the coil as well. Now, I'll hold my hands up here. This is a reused one. It's come off a previous project. It's fully working, but you can get people making these up on eBay, and I've had them before and they're absolutely fine, but there just has to be a point where common sense prevails, I think. for me anyway. I'm just spending money on something that I really don't need to, and I don't think it's much of a cheat. So we'll get that fitted in due course. If that's to tidy up the legs, of course, maybe to get it to fit properly. But that's the idea. Goes in there somehow, and I'll also fit these radial capacitors as well. And then I think that will be a case then of waiting for new stock before I can do anything else. I've been considering fitting the sockets, and I'll see how I go. I might leave that for another video. So let's get straight on it. Let's get these transistors fitted. The only other thing worth mentioning, if you're using original spec transistors, then you can work off the screen print for orientation. But if you're using alternative replacements, as you're probably aware, the orientation may need to change. So double check that before you fit them, because if you get it wrong, who knows what problems that might cause. So this is the 450, and this goes into TR7, which is down here. And as you can see by the layout on the board, hopefully it goes with the flat face facing towards me. Doesn't need to go all the way down. That should do nicely. What do you think of that? I'm quite pleased with that. I'm finding it, I've changed the camera angle, which means I can get a little bit closer to where I'm working. I can see a little bit what I'm doing. And I think the joints are better as a result of that. They're not as blobby as some of the other stuff that I've been doing. Helps just having a little bit of headspace so you can get a bit closer to the work. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. Next thing then, I think, is we'll stick the electrolytic capacitors on. These are directionally sensitive once again, so it doesn't matter the orientation. It is marked up on the silk screen. If you were building an issue to, I think one of them's marked up the wrong way around, but that's irrelevant for this, isn't it? So just be aware to get them the right way around. They are marked up accordingly. As you can see there, the arrows pointing to the negative leg. And on the board, all these big capacitors have got the positives marked as you look round. So let's get these done. Right, let's get this voltage, I want to call it a voltage regulator. It's not a voltage regulator, it's a coil. I think that is the correct orientation. As you can see, the spacing on the legs is slightly different to stop you from fitting it the wrong way around, which is great if you're like me. Let's just check that for flatness. Oh, we're there, aren't we? We're there. Right, let's get the rest of them soldered up. Perfect. My version of perfect, anyway. Right, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fit sockets to the ROM, CPU, the logic chips, the ULA, and the other logic chip over here. I'm going to leave the sockets off for the memory, because what I'm going to use for the memory is I'm going to use a modern module type setup from Electrolytic. So I'm going to leave that because I don't know how many of them need to be socketed, because I've never used one before. So I'm going to leave those off. I'd considered that these sockets might get in the way a bit when I come to fit the transistors and the other remaining components, but do you know what? I think I'll be all right. So let's crack on anyway and get these sockets fitted. It's a good idea when you're doing this to just do alternate corners until you've made sure that it's completely flat and you're happy with it. Because if you do them all and then it's not level, you're going to struggle getting it leveled out. Well, this video's been long enough already. I've fitted the remainder of the sockets off camera, which went without incident. The board's looking pretty good. Giving it a little bit of a clean, but it's going to need cleaning properly once everything's finished and done. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see part 3, where hopefully this will be up and working. There are links in the description to support me if you'd like to become a member. Or buy me a coffee. There's links to assist me if that's what you would like to do. In the meantime, thank you for watching and wish you well, and hopefully see you again soon. Bye for now.